96.29 KARN. U.S. Senator Tom Cotton, good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I hope you and all your listeners are doing well. And on this day after Memorial Day, I think that it's appropriate that we remember that every day really should be a Memorial Day for all those men and women who sacrificed their lives so that we could live in freedom and have conversations like this about public affairs.
You'll hear no argument from me there. Senator Tom Cotton, bitter, vulgar, incoherent ramblings, cancerous leaderships. I think it's safe to assume you were not happy with Minority Leader Harry Reid there.
Well, Kevin, that describes my experience every Tuesday and Wednesday morning in the U.S. Senate. To give you a little background and your listeners a little background, as a new senator, I have the privilege of presiding over the Senate 2 to 3 hours a week. I typically do that on Tuesday and Wednesday morning when the Senate opens, which means I listen to the morning remarks of Mitch McConnell and Harry Reid alike. Unlike most Americans, therefore, I cannot ignore the minority leader. Normally I do my best, but on Wednesday, on the week leading into Memorial Day, we were trying to debate and vote on amendments to the National Defense Authorization Act, the annual defense bill that supports our troops. Yet Harry Reid dragged out the Senate process all week long. We had one vote on Wednesday that passed 98-0. We had a unanimous voice vote on a second matter on Thursday, both of which were necessary to start debating the bill and voting on amendments, and both of which obviously could have passed unanimously on Monday afternoon. So we could have spent the entire week voting on amendments and passing legislation that would have supported our troops. But Harry Reid, because he is a bitter, confused man trying to protect his sad and sorry legacy, dragged the whole thing out for the whole week. And now we have to come back after this Memorial Day work period in our states to pass that legislation next week. And I just think it's a perfect encapsulation of what he's done over the last 8 years in the U.S. Senate. And I'd simply had enough of it.
Do you have a chance to meet with Minority Leader Reid face-to-face here or there, or is it just in the Senate floor in a formal situation?
I would say in passing on the Senate floor, but he's never asked to get on my calendar, and the feeling is mutual. Harry Reid is retiring after this year, and it can't be too soon, in my opinion. There are many other Democrats with whom I work well. I have good relationships with whom I've sponsored legislation or helped collect votes on the Republican side of the aisle for legislation. Chuck Schumer from New York is going to be the new Democratic leader next year. I have a good relationship with Chuck. He's a very loyal and partisan Democrat. I make no bones about that. He probably would say the same thing about me as a Republican. But Chuck is someone who wants to work with Republicans to try to pass legislation where we have mutual ground and we can move the country forward. You simply cannot say the same thing about Harry Reid. For the last 6 years, he's done nothing but try to freeze up the U.S. Senate and protect Barack Obama's administration in their vast regulatory actions to try to reach every corner of American society. And I simply don't have much respect for that kind of activity.
U.S. Senator Tom Cotton, you also have questions about the Obama administration's story on the full amount of Iran sanctions.
Well, the president once said that Iran would get almost $150 billion in sanctions relief. That's just under 40% of their total value of their annual economy. Others in the administration have run around saying, no, it's only going to be $3 billion or $5 billion, and White House aides say that Republicans who criticize that or question it are lying. Well, I can tell you it's the administration who is lying in public. I have received private briefings from administration officials who have revealed the total amount of sanctions relief. And while I can't disclose that, I can tell you it is a hell of a lot closer to $150 billion than it is to $3 or $5 or even $50 billion. So I think the administration needs to come clean and explain exactly how much money they have put into the hands of a terror-sponsoring, radical, theocratic set of ayatollahs. And that's just the start of it. That doesn't count all of the annual growth in their economy from new sales of oil and exports and imports and so forth. I mean, Barack Obama has brought 2% economic growth to America over the last 7 years, but he's brought 6% growth to Iran, which is a pretty sad indictment of both his foreign policy and his economic policy.
Senator Tom Cotton, Memorial Day yesterday, and you mentioned this, as citizens and maybe even as the government, what can we be doing more for our troops? The VA wait times, we keep hearing about that, problems with the VA. What can we be doing in the positive sense here?
Well, first and foremost, you can support the troops in your own lives. When I was at Girl State yesterday, the director asked the girls to stand up if they had someone in the military in their family, and virtually every girl out of almost 900 girls stood up. It's a reminder just how many of your neighbors and your coworkers and your church members either serve themselves or have brothers and sisters, sons and daughters who are in the military, and in particular when those family members are gone, whether it's on a 30-day training rotation to a U.S. base or whether it's on a year-long deployment, as some members of the Arkansas National Guard just started, first to Fort Hood to train and then over to the Middle East. You can look after them, remind them that we care for them, we love them, and we're supporting them. For those troops who are downrange, you can send them notes, you can send them care packages, let them know that you haven't forgot them. And then in Washington, we're constantly working to try to improve the Department of Veterans Affairs. It's got a long way to go. We've made some gradual steps over the last 2 years, but we're still working very hard to do so to make sure that they have the kind of tools and techniques that private sector companies that do similar work, whether it's insurance companies or benefits claims companies, are getting. We're getting those most advanced best practice techniques into the hands of VA employees, many of whom are veterans themselves and want to care for veterans.
Senator Tom Cotton, I know your schedule is busy, but when you have a chance, I'd love to have you in the studio. All right?
Thanks very much. Y'all have a great week.
You too.